Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hansen, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. This is Rick Hansen. I'm with Ricky Bruley, and our guest today is Pat McCurry. He is a coach and has a, if you go to your Instagram page, he's Idaho Afoot. He coaches track. Is that correct, Pat?
I coach people who want to cover land on foot well in any way. So I coach, really high level track athletes. I have a couple trying to make the Olympic team this summer. I coach 50-year-old dudes trying to run their first marathon. I coach ladies wanting to climb mountains. I coach people to backcountry hunt better. If you want to traverse land faster or longer on foot, I can help you.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I want to actually go in a little bit deeper before we get to your coaching. You lived in San Francisco for how long?
Only about 2.5 years. I coached college track and field for like 20 years, but mostly
Uh,
in the Northwest. Most of that time was at the College of Idaho and Boise State. And then,
uh,
took the job at the University of San Francisco. It was a great job. Same reason anyone goes to San Francisco. Um, and, during that time, the pandemic hit. Um, we actually, so we got, my wife got pregnant with our first daughter, who's now 3, about 5 weeks before the pandemic. And honestly, it was about the week after I found out she was pregnant. We had a great little place. We lived in the Marin Headlands, right above Muir Woods on Mount Tam. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but trails everywhere out our door. You had to deal with a commute to the city for work, but it was a pretty cool place to live if you got to live in a big metro area. And I went out for a long hike by myself. And, when I found out my wife was pregnant, when we just started putting a lot more thought into kind of where we want to raise our kids, the kind of lifestyle we want to have for our family. And we're just weird mountain people. Like, we get all of our meat from hunting and fishing, and we a little bit from my brother's ranch occasionally, but we source all our own meat. We grow a garden. Like, we just want to be in the mountains. And so we kind of knew, not just San Francisco, but having to live somewhere the job wasn't going to be a long-term thing for us anymore. And on that hike, I had this idea. I have this skill set as a coach, and I loved coaching collegiate track and field, but I didn't like just having to live wherever the good job happened to be. And we kind of came up with this idea to start a remote coaching business that would allow us to live in the mountains and live the lifestyle we want to live, raising our kids. And that's, so we, maybe a year and a half later, kind of pulled the trigger and made the big jump and moved up here just in the mountains outside Salmon, Idaho, and been going with it since.
well, I have to tell you, my gosh, it looks gorgeous.
It's a pretty awesome place to live.
I mean, I live here in the Black Hills of South Dakota, so I can't
Yeah.
complain. But Ricky could complain, but we won't listen to him.
Yeah, we have hills here. We don't have mountains.
Yeah.
But
I call them mountains, but I don't think you could classify them as mountains.
well,
Yeah,
I've
Salmon's an amazing place. We're like, the backdrop of Salmon, and we live a little bit out of town, about 1,000 feet above the valley floor. But the town of Salmon, the backdrop is the Beaverhead Peaks of the Continental Divide, which is the border with Montana. So, we're right on the Montana border, but it's just absolutely amazing place to live. Obviously, we're right here with the Salmon River and Frank Church Wilderness straight across the canyon from us. It's if you want to live a true mountain life, it's hard to beat.
Mm-hmm.
well, and I'm excited to talk to you because I when you went through your pandemic mountain climb, there's a mountain here right out of Spearfish. It's called Crow Peak,
Yeah.
and on New Year's Eve, I decided to climb it 100 times, and I did it in roughly 6 months. It's about every third day. Some days I wanted to keep the keep the pace up. So sometimes I would climb it 3 times in one day. It's about 7 miles round trip,
Yeah,
16,000 vertical feet. But when it was made me interested to know that when you went for that hike, that is where we clear our heads.
absolutely.
And that's where you find your answers. There's times when you're tired but those places give you energy, and they give you a sense of peace and a sense of reflection and a sense of direction. And I think
Yeah.
that's interesting that you were on a hike and figured out that that's where you wanted to start, that your family needed to be somewhere else, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've I put so many hours and miles, either hiking or running, in my life in the mountains. But I remember the moments of that hike like really clearly, and it was just this moment of clarity where all of a sudden I saw. I mean, I really loved collegiate coaching. Like I really loved the work. I loved what it meant to young people. The life stuff you were building for them was really rewarding. But I always kind of had like coaching and then hunting and the mountains and wilderness. So these two kind of parts of my life that I was always just kind of ping ponging back and forth. And on that hike was the first time I was like, maybe these things don't have to be separate. Maybe maybe I need to stop looking at them as
Yeah.
separate and see kind of the crossover in the Venn diagram there, and try to plant our stake in that crossover.
So so does your coaching interfere like in the fall? Is that'd be more of an off season of your track of your outside coaching of your athletes, would it not? So then you get to go, I'd assume, elk hunting and bird hunting and your fall hunts.
Yeah,
Does
Yeah, there's not really because I coach such an array of people now. I mean, there's not really one set off season, but I will tell you, I'm fortunate. The fall tends to be the quietest time. It's when I have
Mm.
athletes racing the least, so it does work out pretty well. The really busy time for me with work is we're kind of going into it now. It's really spring and summer. The track athletes, and I coach a lot of trail, mountain trail ultra athletes, and their stuff's primarily in the summer, especially in this region. So super busy from now through July. And I should mention too, we also built into this. We're a licensed outfitter, so we outfit and guide trail runs and hikes up here, and that's a part of our business. We started kind of secondary, and have just been building a little bit each season. So we do quite a bit of that in July and August, and we even our permits carry into September. So we have that aspect too. But yeah, the lightest months for work for me are September, October, November. That works out pretty well for hunting. What doesn't work
Mhm.
out well is
well,
having two kids in September in 3 years. But
I hear you there. I don't have kids, but I have friends that have had kids in September. Not I get to
yeah,
go hunting. We'll just say that at times.
yeah, this was a lighter year for hunting for sure. We had our second daughter was born in September, so.
Mm.
But it's interesting. You had talked about the outfitting and of the runners and stuff, because I wanted to get into that anyway. Do you have to be? Is that a special use permit by the Forest Service that you have to go in there with?
Yeah, it's quite a process. So, I mean, there's a state side and the federal land manager side. So, the state side in Idaho is pretty rigorous to get licensed. I kind of joke like politically, Idaho doesn't regulate much, but outfitting is the one thing they seem to heavily
Yeah.
regulate. So, which makes
Mhm.
sense. It's a huge part of our state economy. But yeah, so kind of have to go through that part first, get your state license. Um, and then we're on a temporary permit, which is kind of how everybody starts as an outfitter, unless you buy an existing outfitting business. So we just basically apply for our permits. This is the process we're in right now. This time of year, we put in for our permit requests. X number of use days, these areas, these routes. It's a lot of paperwork. I'm almost done with it. Hopefully, get it turned in this week for this year, and then they come back and say, yeah, you get these areas, or you might not get these ones, and yeah, but we've got some incredible high. We really try to take people into high mountain lakes. That's something I think is just a really cool experience for everybody. And we try to make things pretty accessible. Obviously we have people come in that want to do these hikes like vigorously and fast, some that even want to trail run them. And then we have people that it's kind of a big challenge for. And, we try to carry more of the load and help them get in there and see these things they probably wouldn't go out and do totally on their own.
Mhm.
Well, where I wanted to go with that is you're bringing in these athletes, and I don't know if they're I don't know if they're just like just track. I mean, do you bring in if you bring in some track athletes or other athletes that are not used to being in the wilderness or that kind of environment? To
Yeah.
me, that is something. What I saw was that you're feeding them your wild game, and
Yep.
you're taking them to places that will fill their souls
Yeah. Yeah.
and mind, and I to me that would help me become a better athlete in the aspect of you're showing them what the purpose of what they're out there for, and
Yeah.
it just give them a sense of peace to become a better athlete. Is I would assume when you're out there on your trail runs and your other things that you're doing with them up there.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's kind of I mean, sometimes we do have, like you've probably seen on some of our Instagram stuff, maybe like some of our real serious athletes come here and train and spend a little time, and we're taking them out in the mountains to train and feeding them and stuff. We also have outfitting clients that are just come in and just want to go for a hike and want a little help with it. So again, kind of
Mm.
like a coach, there's kind of a wide spectrum there. But yes, when we bring athletes here, it's so cool. I coach a number of athletes in San Francisco. I kind of established a base down there when I was there. And I have one particular athlete there that she keeps recruiting other athletes. So she kind of built this like whole pod of folks in San Francisco. And a lot of them are, they obviously live in a very urban place. A lot of them are from kind of they've lived in mostly urban settings their life, most of their life. Um, one of my athletes, she came up here with her boyfriend a couple of years ago in the summer, kind of on the tail end of her season, and we took them out, on some runs, on some hikes, some really cool areas around the region. And we were hiking into a high mountain lake this one day, and her and her boyfriend, and then they like outdoor stuff. I mean, they've done the national parks and stuff, but they live in San Francisco. She grew up in New Jersey. He grew up in San Francisco, and they just stopped on the trail, and she said to me, "This is just as pretty as Glacier, and there's no one here." And people in Idaho get mad that I'm bringing people here and showing, then they'll come back and we get that whole side of things. But anyway, there is that aspect, and probably the next level down from that is even more important, in that as a coach, what I'm really trying to do is get athletes to engage in the process of what they're doing, and really value the process of what they're doing. And nothing quite does that like doing those things in these epic, beautiful spaces. And all of a sudden they got to do this long, easy run because it's what's on their training schedule to be really good in this target race 3 months down the road. But they stop seeing it like that, and they start to see, I'm really fortunate just to be here in this space and be able to do this. And then when they value that, they get more engaged in it. And then the training kind of gets to a whole nother level.
Well, I'll have to admit here that I'm going to tell you something. I'm a Courtney DeWalter fan,
All right.
and I watch her trails, and I mean, I love her. I love that. Well, you know what I love about her the most is she takes her videos are in the mountains, her races are in the mountains,
Yep.
and she's one of the
Yep.
best in the world. But she comes down and she drinks a beer and talks to people, and just I honestly believe because of where she lives in Colorado and trains, and I mean, she's showing people to value the view too, because she enjoys the view, and she's one of the top athletes for endurance racers in the world right now, and
Yep.
it's just amazing to me when she's on a training mission, smile on her face out in the mountains, and just like just one of those regular people.
Yeah.
So that's what Ricky and I always do a challenge. Usually in the spring, I challenge myself to, like, I've done 6 peaks in one day in South Dakota in the Black Hills. This year
Okay.
we're going to do 7. It was about 35 miles. It ended up being about 8,000 vertical feet. This year we're going to do, Ricky's never been on this, and he's going to do the hardest one because it's going to be 7 peaks in 24 hours in the Black Hills. The logistics is a tough part of getting into a
Sure.
vehicle and tightening up and then going. But this is so fun to talk to somebody that kind of trains athletes and stuff. But this isn't a race; it's a physical
Yeah.
challenge. Because I saw in a little research I did, I saw that you were Jenny as her name. She hurt herself. She was one of your athletes before, and you got her you,
Yeah.
training, and she started accomplishing her goals. And I'm just saying, it's with what we're doing and what you're doing. It was so fun to see that you help one of your former athletes, and uh, she gets better. And from what I saw, I mean, it was a very
Yeah.
short. It was that little clip, but it was amazing to watch, and it's amazing to see that what what you do is in helping people, and that's why we're here for Don't Die Rusty too, because we want to help people. But thank you for showing the world what Idaho is too. You know what I mean? And well, I don't. I mean, because I don't want
Yeah.
them to come to the Black Hills for one thing, but that's besides the. No, I'm just kidding.
It's already
Yeah.
overpopulated there.
But I mean, what I was going with the 7 and with Jenny is, you said didn't want to run a race.
Yeah.
Is that right? But
She
she just
hasn't.
wanted to
No,
get better.
I've been coaching her again for about 2 years, and she hasn't raced. She is planning on running a race this summer, so we're kind of back to where that's an option for her for the first time in years and years in her life. But that was not the objective. When she asked me to start helping her out again, it was try to get healthy so she could regularly hike and run and backpack and do the things she loves to do and the things that bring meaning to her life and she likes doing with her husband and her friends. And I coach a number of athletes like that don't race or race very little. What I'm helping them do is stay healthy so they can stay active and stay on their feet and keep that part of their life alive.
That's the most cool part to me, because, like I said, I'm out here challenging myself, and I love that she was challenging herself just to get better, so she could go
Yeah.
experience life. Because uh, I don't know if there was actually a BHA thing in Boise a few years ago. There's a 94-year-old guy that packed out his own mule deer, and that was kind of a turning point in some aspects too. Because not a turning point, because I feel I've always been an athlete of some sort. I was never a long distance runner, but I enjoy things. But when I heard he packed out his own mule deer at 94, 3 miles, and I said, that's what I want to do. That's why I do the things I do, and that's why I love what you're doing. And I'll probably be asking you some advice here in years to come. I hope, you know what I
Yeah,
mean, and
absolutely.
to stay in shape. But this is this was a this is a great conversation to be having, because I I just love this whole thing. So, and I saw chopping wood. I want to get back to you moving to Idaho. Do you, so you have your wife and 2 kids now,
Yeah.
and I mean, not now. So that was, but you have your wife and 2 kids, and you take them out, and I love how you're backpacking your daughter,
Yeah.
right? Correct,
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
in the backpack I saw, and showing them the values of being in the wild too. That is just amazing. And so, do you heat your house just with wood, or is
Yeah,
that a
primarily
supplemental thing?
we do have we do have a backup electric furnace, but heating with that thing up here all winter would run us out of finances pretty quickly anyway. But yeah, we have two wood stoves, one upstairs, one downstairs. So we cut about 5 cords of wood, for every winter. That gets us through. We're having a good wood winter because it's been kind of warm, so we're ahead. But first couple of winters up here, it was figuring out how much we need, and I was a little behind. But yeah, it's all part of the lifestyle that we enjoy. I mean, to me, August and September is wood season. I mean, that's kind of leading right up to when real hunting starts. But I mean, there's nothing better. I'll go like on an early September day, go up and cut wood, and I'll bring my over under 20 gauge and take a break from wood cutting and get a couple grouse. I'll bring my fly rod, and on the way down, fish a little, stream and catch a trout or two. And I mean, you come home with a couple dinners and, a few weeks worth of wood to heat your house during the winter season. And it's just a good way to live. I think that we are, and not to get all grumpy old man, I try to avoid that tone, but like we are more and more disconnected from our processes, and the culture of convenience that dominated American life for the last decades, since the 50s really,
Mm-hmm.
has really taken a toll on us. Taking a toll on us physically, because people don't have, like, I call wood cutting. It's just, I go into hunting season so strong and fit, and I'm not really doing much other than cutting wood in the 6 weeks prior. I'm doing a lot of stuff before that, but
Mm-hmm.
it gets you ready, and like, it's just lifestyle fitness. And most people don't have lifestyle fitness anymore because they don't need to do that stuff or choose to do that stuff. And it's taken a toll on us mentally and emotionally, because we're not connected to anything we do anymore. We just expect, I pull this box out, I put it in here, and I heat it up and I eat it. And I'm not thinking about the life that maybe was lost to provide this meat. I'm not thinking about what might be in it. It's just convenient, convenient, convenient. And what we're trying to do up here is kind of the antithesis of that.
I like what you said about that, and Rick, sorry if I'm gonna jump in here and kind of steal what you were gonna say, because this is I wanted to briefly talk about really quick, like how this all came to be, because I had a mutual acquaintance of ours on another podcast that I do, and Garrett Rock, and we had just a great conversation. We reconnected.
Yeah, I listened to the episode. It's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, and we didn't really know each other that well, but all these years we've just been one or two people removed from one another, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, oh you bow hunt too? What, really? Okay,
Yeah.
so, but then he had said you really got to talk to Pat, and he introduced us, and when I was trying to think like, okay, I know I want to have you on at least one podcast. And so I went to when I was on on the Idaho Afoot page, the first video I clicked on, and this is where this kind of rolls into what you were saying, Rick, is a reel of you chopping wood. And it's one of your Tuesday tips. And you say, get into those menial tasks with mindfulness and intention, chop wood,
Yeah.
carry water. And right away I was just like, okay, this is a Don't Die Rusty episode, because again, and then I started diving more into that, and I know that you hunt as well, but and the other podcast I have is an archery podcast, but this one was more like, I'm like, this is a guy that I read your first blog post, or your most recent blog post on your website, and then again going back to you guys just kind of making a total shift in the way that you guys live, and I'm just like, now that to me is not dying rusty. And I'm like, that's why we need to have him on. And again, I love the idea of doing tasks with intention, always, even the most mundane things, just do them, with everything you got. And
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. Yeah. We joke all the time in our house, my wife and I, that we choose the labor intensive route like 9 times out of 10, and that,
Mhm.
that comes with a cost, and the cost is really time, um,
Yeah.
but it gives you so much more. And we were kind of doing this tonight because we not only really love sourcing as much of our own food as possible, and we hope to gradually do more and more of that with increasing our garden and stuff, but we just love cooking and preparing our food and all kinds of things. And tonight we made banh mi sandwiches with ground venison,
Mhm.
like the Vietnamese sandwich. We're doing, my wife themes weeks for our 3-year-old daughter, and this is Lunar New Year week. And my wife's Japanese,
Yep.
so her mom grew up in Japan and
Okay.
still has a lot of family there. So that heritage is really strong in her family. So we've been making Asian food all week, and we make a lot of Asian food all the time. But we love making Asian food with the wild game. It's kind of like where, kind of her heritage, and the life we're building is kind of where they meet. But tonight, I mean, we had a ton of stuff going on. You know how it gets. I mean, it's hectic, and we're trying to make this like very specific meal, and we're chopping up the cilantro, and she's making this cabbage kind of slaw topping for the sandwiches, and I'm mincing garlic and ginger into the venison. Like, we're doing all this stuff, and you have the thought for a second, like, oh man, like maybe a TV dinner would work every now and then, just to save the dinner. But then, you have that thought for a minute, and then, gosh, I mean, you get this great meal, and it's fresh and it's delicious, and we know where it came from. She made the bread herself for the buns, and we're standing there eating it, and our 3-year-old's loving it, and it's just worth it to us. It's worth it
Yeah,
to take the labor intensive route.
that's great.
Well, it's interesting because looking at your posts, I thought they were very unfair because if we don't even have a scratch and sniff screen, so I can't. When I see your food, at least I'd like to smell it. I might not be able to eat it, but it always looks just
Yeah,
like, holy smokes! It makes me even hungrier, and then I feel like
yeah,
I need to go eat something. So it kind of takes me off my diet because I already ate sometimes, and
yeah, yeah,
but it looks
yeah.
delicious. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. We're into it. We really enjoy it and trying to get better at it all the time. And I love feeding people wild game that haven't had it or have had a bad experience with it and don't like it. And I mean, there's nothing better than I kind of get amped for it. We have someone coming over to the house that I kind of
Mm.
know thinks that way about it. I'll go extra and make a really good shank recipe or something that I know everybody will love. And yeah, it's really cool. And we get that when we have athletes and outfitting guests come up here. We do feed quite a bit of wild game, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is because I mean, people hear bad things about antelope, and
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite tender.
absolutely.
Just if you take care of your food, it'll take care of you, and that's
Yeah,
when you're out in the field, you take care of your food, and
yeah,
my wife actually, she ate wild game, but it wasn't a big deal because she really didn't come from a hunting family in that aspect, and
yeah,
every time I cooked her something when we were dating, she said, "What is this?" And it's meat. You know what I mean? It wasn't that I don't know. I just picked it out of the the freezer, and I didn't look what it was. I just know I got it,
yeah,
and we're gonna eat it. But now she's the same way. It's like, this is
yeah,
what we're having tonight, and she is really into just having mostly wild meat all the time, and sometimes it gets a little crazy because she wants everybody else to have wild meat, and then she gives it away, and then I feel like Jiminy Cripe, sweet, but some of
yeah,
it, what I mean, because she's excited for people to eat some stuff like that, I mean, some people say they have never had elk or they've never had an antelope,
yeah,
or whatever, and I even had she gave away a little bit of my mountain goat, which was, you don't get one of those every day, and
no,
stuff like that, but what and then I look at it in another term is in it, which is funny because uh, some of your people probably don't hunt, but at least they know what they're eating is good for them. So
yeah,
that's where I go. I really don't care if sometimes if she's given some of this away, because if it tastes good to them and they understand where it came from, that saves our way of life, of
correct.
being in
Yeah,
the outdoors, of enjoying the food. You don't have to hunt or you don't have to, it's just understanding that meat comes from something.
yeah,
And like, I mean, this isn't a hunting podcast, but that's where it is. It's about being healthy too,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's a
So
huge part of it for us. Yeah, and it's interesting, Rick. You bring up your wife and kind of her relationship with the game meat and stuff. So my wife was a vegetarian for a decade. When we started dating, she hadn't had meat in 10 years, like not a speck of meat, any of it. And
Oh, wow.
I don't remember how far in we were, but maybe a few months. And I was cooking up some venison steak, and she said, "I think I want to try that." And I was like, well, "Are you sure? Like, you've committed to this thing for like a long time. Like I don't want you to just throw that out if you're really serious about it and have serious reasons." But um, so she tried it and hasn't looked back, and it's now eats game meat like crazy. But what I find really interesting is I say, like, she has like a completely pure palate for meat, right? Like, she didn't have any for a decade, so she doesn't have like the preconceptions of beef tastes like this and venison tastes like this.
Mhm.
And she doesn't have any preconceptions about like, oh, rabbit, I'm not going to eat that. Like to her, it's just a blank slate. And so I think she's like kind of my tester, like if I just want to know like what an unbiased person would think of this meat, like
Oh,
she's it, and she loves this. You'll find this interesting. Her favorite meat is cottontail rabbit. So we hunt
really?
cottontails here. I think when I talked to you on the phone, Rick, I was coming back from rabbit hunting, but um,
Yep.
cottontail is like better chicken. It's if you know how to cook it, the hind legs. I mean,
Mhm.
it's really good, and she just absolutely loves it. So she likes all of it, but she gets super excited when we bring rabbits home. So
Well, that is awesome. That is just awesome, I mean, for people to, especially like you said, not have those preconceived notions, because that where
yeah,
I was going with my wife is it was beef, pork, and chicken. You know what I mean? It wasn't so much pheasant or partridge or deer or antelope or elk or
yeah,
and and I said, "Well, when we started dating, this is what I do and this is what I eat." And also to that fact is, when you walk into a grocery store per se and you look around and you know what? I don't have to buy any meat. That is one of the best
ab-
parts of going into a grocery store.
yep. Especially
Is
Yes.
now.
I'm set. Oh,
Yeah.
especially now.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like
And
it before just because I don't know the source and I don't know what's in it and all that. But geez, now it's so expensive, like it's ridiculous. And not that
Mhm.
hunting's cheap. We all spend plenty of money on hunting, um, but it's pretty nice not to have to do that. And yeah,
Mhm.
what
our second daughter was born in September this year. She was born September 20th, and our other daughter turned 3 on the 21st. So we were coming into my daughter's birthday knowing my wife would go into labor like any day. And so we wanted to kind of plan for what my daughter wanted for her birthday because we didn't know if we were going to be running to the hospital on her birthday. And my parents were up here, to help with when the baby arrived. But we asked our 3-year-old, and she wasn't quite 3 then, like, what do you want for birthday dinner? You can have anything, yeah, pizza, and she wanted trout and chucker. That's what she said.
Heck
And
yo.
chucker season had
Awesome.
just opened. My dad was up here, so I was like, "All right, Dad, go catch a couple trout." So we got that. And the day before my wife went into labor, I had we're just trying to get everything done. And I was like, "Oh, we got to get a chucker." So I told Miriam, my daughter, I was like, "All right, let's go find a chucker." And we got in the truck and we went in this canyon across the way here, where usually there are some, and actually found them and got out, went up the hill, and she got to watch the whole thing and I just shot one chucker and brought it down to her, and she's just holding it up. It's her birthday chucker. And yeah, and then that
Love that.
night we went to the hospital and had our second daughter and came home the next day, and we had the trout and the chucker ready to go. But I don't know, just think it's like, what 3-year-old requests trout and chucker for their birthday dinner?
Mhm.
Not many. It would probably been Skittles and ice cream and other things,
Yeah,
My
yeah,
my daughter's just all mac and cheese, man. Mac and cheese and apple juice.
yeah. Miriam does like mac and cheese. She does dig that.
So so I have a question. I was wondering if we could get into some of the training
Yeah,
aspects because I thought that I know you saw Ricky do the cold water plunge.
yeah.
And then and then I know you saw my challenge. Do you think that my challenge is a little bit tougher to do? Like getting in the hot tub with the blizzard? Would that be a better athletic thing to do or
Boy, I mean, honestly, you could get a big debate going on this right now in the world of athletic recovery. Um, Cold plunges are highly debated,
I know.
and yeah, and then the whole aspect of I mean, there is something to heat post workout, and you were getting, we always say like 250 calories minimum immediately post training to get back to equilibrium. So I mean, you were definitely hitting that with the blizzard easy. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I think there's value in
And I
both.
only went medium.
Yeah,
No, yeah, it was just one of those things. I saw you said well done and I just like
that was
well
funny.
played or and I just had like Ricky got in there, I said, I think I need to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
So not, so I thought, nobody has ever that I've seen has done a hot tub with a blizzard. I didn't even
Yeah.
get brain freeze.
That's impressive.
When he told me about that, I was like, that's perfect. I was like, yes, you do need to do that. Absolutely. Because it really does kind of show the different sides of the two Ricks, right? And then at the same
Yeah.
time, we can bust each other's chops once in a while, you know what I mean? Or well, all the
Yeah.
time for that matter. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun.
Because that's one of our you'll start seeing in the Don't Die Rusty stuff is I just there's serious times and there's times to have fun, and this is it's not all serious. It's adventures and everything else too. And
Yeah.
there's one other thing. I mean, we'll keep on moving here, but I do like your musical choices in your reels. That is awesome. I've heard some Core Blund and Trampled with Turtles, and I'm thinking we're on the same page here.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. We're pretty into that. I don't know. I call it alternative country or Americana. I mean, you could go by a lot of different
Exactly.
names, that kind of genre, but we're very into that. Have a good friend that puts on the Jackalope Jamboree Festival in Pendleton, Oregon. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but
Mhm.
Corblund played it last year, and yeah, one of my good buddies puts that on, so I've gotten to help him out behind the scenes with that a little bit. I manned the grill in the athlete hospitality, not athlete, sorry, the artist hospitality area last year, which was a lot
Ah.
of fun. Get to meet all those musicians and hang out and cook them some food and everything. So, but yeah, we definitely like that style of music. So.
Yeah, I've seen Corb I think 6 times
Have you?
and oh yeah, and I haven't seen Trampled with Turtles, but you have Colby
Haven't
Acuff
either.
from Idaho, and I I can't wait. I would love to go see Colby Acuff, and I'm like I said, I'm into that type of music myself. So
Yeah, another great festival here is the Braun Brothers reunion in Chalice, Idaho, which is just an hour upriver from us, and it's unbelievable. I mean, they've had Robert Earl
yes,
Keen there, and yeah, so that's a really. I mean that the Braun family came from this part of Idaho, and so their roots have kind of spread here, and there's a lot of following for that kind of music. So,
That would be Reckless Kelly, and
yep, Mickey and the Motor Cars and Reckless Kelly, those guys. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So
Hey Rick, Trampled is well, they're playing in a couple weeks here, but they're in Sioux Falls, so that's still a little bit of a haul for you.
yes,
They're doing
so
something for Pheasants Forever, I think, or something.
yeah, so
yeah.
I
That
mean
guy,
that's
the head guy, I can't remember the Trampled Turtles guy. He's a pretty big conservationist. He was on BHA podcast, and yeah,
Dave Simonette.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
actually I went to college with him at UMD
Oh wow,
up in Duluth, and I remember we would go to some parties, and he would just be jamming in the living room. A bunch of people would be sitting around him. He'd just be jamming his
yeah,
guitar. It's
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. They're awesome.
when it's funny today because I decided to put whiskey in as my music for that reel tonight, so it's kind
Yeah,
of interesting that. But I just wanted to say it was interesting. But the jackalope, it was the jackalope jamboree.
Jackalope Jamboree in Pendleton, Oregon. Yeah, it's in June. I can't remember what exact weekend, but it's in June.
Well,
Yeah,
I might have to talk Cindy into going out to such a thing sometime because I just like interesting things.
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you, so now we'll get back to more serious, not really serious, but do you, with the wild meat and the athletes that you have and the food, I assume the uh, diet that they're on, do many of them take supplements?
Very little. We have, especially like our female endurance athletes, most of them end up taking iron. It's just hard to get enough iron, from dietary content when you're training at the levels they are. So that's a pretty common one. Some niche things here and there. Interestingly, Ricky, this is my connection to Garrett. So one of our partners is athletebloodtest.com, the company, and they're awesome. So they're one of these biomarker companies where you can go and get blood work done, and they'll analyze it from like a physical and athletic performance standpoint, not strictly a medical, like what, because a
Okay.
doctor look at like your ferritin level, for instance, or iron, and if you're not outside this range, like, yeah, whatever, you're good, you're not going to get sick, but
Mhm.
athletically you might need to be in a different place. An athlete blood test, that's what they do, and that's Garrett started that, and that's how I got to know
Oh.
Garrett and JC,
Huh.
and yeah, so it's been an awesome relationship. So they've been super supportive of us. I mean, some of our high level athletes get blood work done with them all the time. They're just phenomenal. Um, but yeah, so when we do get blood work like that, those are the situations where if we know something's low, we have to supplement for an amount of time. We do that, but very little supplementing, honestly. We work hard with them to teach them to not really teach them, but encourage them to eat healthy and eat balanced, and they're all smart. And I think that knowledge about how we need to eat is not really the problem. Like most people know, or can quickly kind of find out how to eat optimally for performance, for longevity. It's actually doing it that's hard, right? It's building it into your life, and getting away from that culture of convenience. But yeah, not a lot of supplementing, mostly eating a lot and eating really balanced.
Mm.
Because it's interesting, you think about, like, I grew up a ranch in central South Dakota when I was a kid, and you didn't have any supplements, but you still had a lot of energy.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, but I think it's your lifestyle too, because you're moving, you're
yeah,
outside, you're doing stuff. So your metabolism, I'm certainly no doctor, and I don't claim to be. And I
yeah,
didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I do think that, you know, keep it moving. I have 2 torn meniscus right now, but
yeah,
I'm not really working on them because, he said, I mean, am I he all it would do is worse. If he cleans them up, he says then it deteriorates a little faster and stuff. So I just I
you
take
got a
shots,
good,
but
honest doctor there. That's good.
he, yes, and we're probably going to have him on the podcast someday because he's
Oh,
pretty
awesome.
interesting in himself. But
Mm.
But it was funny because if I don't keep moving, like, daily, I
Yep,
hurt. When I
absolutely,
stop is when I hurt. It's not because people say, "How do you do the stuff you do?" It's, well, if I don't do it is when I start hurting.
absolutely.
And I think that's because it's in that it's in that the moving part. It's interesting. I I I like to say that my training as a younger kid, or from probably I raked hay. I started raking hay at 10 years old,
Yeah,
on a tractor. But it's funny because you talk about cottontails and jackrabbits and stuff, and we're raking hay, and I'd stop the tractor and I'd chase the jackrabbits and I'd catch them, the littler ones, not
yeah, yeah,
but you're ch- so I'm out there running through the hayfields chasing jackrabbits, and my dad is watching me as he's at that time he was they called it a hay bus. They had hay busters and stuff but it was interesting because there's Rick chasing a rabbit, and I would throw him. I put him in the back my pickup, or here in Dad's pickup, and here and there, and one time I think I had about 30 rabbits, and one night somehow they all disappeared. They
huh?
just I think my dad went and let them go, but it was yeah,
Yeah,
Mm.
but it was just like it was fun to just. I think that's what I'm saying about being outside and in training is I never had any supplements. I never had anything. It was just like, this is fun. Let's go catch a rabbit,
yeah,
or whatever. You know what I mean? But I just like the thought. I mean, I do a few supplements myself, but I think that is as I grow older, I'm just trying to keep moving a
yeah,
little bit. But that was interesting because I was thinking of the food that these we're all eating different food, uh,
yeah,
because I grew up. Like I said, grew up on a ranch. You had beef. You had what? There's a lot of canned vegetables because that's what you did.
yeah,
There's more stuff out of the garden, and then all of a sudden things start turning, and it becomes easier to go to the grocery store to get something, and things become more
yeah,
processed, and we were, it's interesting. The simple life seemed to be for me, and it is also because of the lifestyle you live. But being in the country and having the solitude, you had energy. So I like to hear that athletes learn about this stuff and are proficient. So anyway,
Yeah.
Speaking of the diet stuff, or go ahead, Pat. You can finish your thought there.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say that. I mean, some of the athletes I work with are again like world class, like trying to make the Olympic team this summer, and they have some specific supplements, but again, it's like iron, it's vitamin D in the winter when they're not getting enough from sunlight, and that's just because they're trying to be the best athletes in the world. I mean, they're looking at
oh,
thin margins,
definitely.
right? But if
Hmm.
you eat, unless you have some specific medical stuff going on, if you're really paying attention to your nutrition, it's really not that necessary, even at the elite athlete level.
Hmm.
That's awesome to hear.
So now that we're talking about diet and stuff, so I'm curious because so I'm not much of a runner, and I've done I think I did me and a buddy one summer did a 10K, and so back then, carb loading was still pretty popular, or maybe it
Yeah,
was just still being carried over to amateurs that didn't really know what they were doing at that time, right? Like you're just
sure.
so we were just like pounding spaghetti like the night before, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um and whatever, and the next day ran it, everything was good. Had that, that just really like energized feeling, and I was just like, man, okay, I guess I kind of get why people really like running so much.
yeah,
Um, but then I, several years later, listened to a podcast. It was on Joe Rogan with Mark Sisson, and
yeah,
he talks a lot about how back in the day they would do all the carb loading and all that kind of stuff, and now he's more paleo, or well, more, I think he's like full blown ketogenic.
sure.
But just talking more specifically about how that type of a diet, like a paleo diet, is becoming more popular within the, endurance athlete crowd. And so I'm assuming that with your lifestyle and the way that you do things, is that kind of how things are going now with endurance athletes as far as diet? The whole carb loading thing is kind of out. You want to watch your sugar levels and all that kind of stuff and avoid all of that. Is there some truth to that? And the reason I ask that is because, sometimes you don't know if it's just like some marketable stuff that they're trying to sell,
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
and you being in it,
yeah, yeah.
and doing it. Just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot like a lot of things in our culture, Ricky. Like we don't like nuance, you know. We like absolutism has kind of taken over, and I'm a vegan, or I'm paleo, or I'm keto. I only eat meat. We apply these things to our nutritional preferences. The truth is, a balanced diet, something in the middle, is what's best. And the best athletes in the
Mhm.
world, almost all of them, that's what they eat. I mean, the highest level athletes I've coached in my career just eat really balanced diets. They eat some meat. They don't eat a ton of meat. They eat a ton of fresh fruits and vegetables, a ton of complex carbs. Um, I'm dealing mainly with endurance athletes, especially now in my career. So we are eating a little higher percentage of our diet is carbs, but we're not carb loading. We're not overdoing
Yeah.
it. Um, Actually, through ABT, through athlete blood tests, we've been connected with some really good dietitians. And I should qualify this: I'm a coach. I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not qualified to tell people
Yeah.
exactly what to eat.
Mhm.
But that's what all the best dietitians are telling people. They're trying to, because people are coming to them like, I got to be keto or paleo, or I got to I don't eat any meat, and they're always just trying to steer people to the middle, and get people to eat
Mhm.
balanced sources of fats, proteins, and carbs. That the fact is that's I just said I'm not a dietitian. I shouldn't tell people what to do, but that's what people should do: is eat a balanced diet. I mean, I just don't think, and I'll qualify that with people can do whatever they want. I mean, if it makes sense for people, then that's fine. That's what they want to do. But if you want to fuel yourself for longevity, it's all just be middle of the road. You know.
And so then my next question for you on that one then is, because when you talk about a balanced diet, right? So think about like, when we were younger, right? What was it? We had the food pyramid, and you
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
your breads and grains were at the bottom, and that was what you had to have the most servings of every day. So would
Yeah.
you say that still applies today, or is it a little different now? Is that, should those that amount of servings of, like you're saying, complex carbohydrates and all that kind of stuff, should it be reduced from what we all were led to believe back when we were growing up?
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff on that out there about maybe how much processed food industry influenced that pyramid. Um,
Yeah.
but no, I wouldn't say that. I think carbs, especially simple carbs, were really overdone for a long time in the American diet, and I think that gave way to kind of the backlash of going way the other way. I think what
Yeah.
people should eat the most of is fruits and vegetables. Like that's what you should be having the most servings of a day. That's hard to do.
Mm.
It's hard to get those foods freshly all the time. You have to get creative, do smoothies, have some canned stuff to supplement your fresh stuff, like all those things. But um, yeah, when I look at, like, I was just talking to my wife about this the other night, like she always makes fun of me because, she's like, and I love like all types of food, like I'll eat, we eat a ton of Asian food. I love Mexican food. We make a lot of different types of food from different that come from different ethnicities. We made a bunch of African food a couple weeks ago, peanut soup, which I'd never had, was amazing. Um,
Mm.
so we do a lot of stuff, but she still gets on me because she's like, "You every time you want to cook, you just make like meat and potatoes and a huge salad." And I'm like, okay, well, like look around the world, almost everybody's plate is like a protein, a starch, and some vegetable. Like it's, you make it sound really boring, but that's kind of what everybody does, to some extent.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
in that discussion, like if my plate is half salad and a quarter meat and a quarter potatoes, I do really well with that. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people would do really well with that. But I think we get way too drawn to the meat or the potatoes sometimes and forget that what we really need to keep our system going is a lot of greens.
Mm.
But I love meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Me too.
Cool.
My
No,
wife,
that's awesome.
and that's where I was going to go. My wife makes fun of me too, but I'm a meat and potatoes person myself. So,
Yeah.
and I think all three of us being married know that must be they don't say that in our vows, but that's one of the ones that should be in there. The wife makes fun of the husband all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
And but
My
it's interesting. Go ahead.
my wife, she thought it was interesting that, because I always surround my meals are surrounded by the meat, right? Like the meat is the main portion, and then everything falls into place from there, right? Like all of
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever's going to go with it is based on
Yeah.
the meat choice, and she's kind of the opposite, right? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's funny, and I might need to have her talk to your wives, because I still haven't gotten her onto the wild game uh, wagon yet, and especially the squirrels that I shoot in the backyard. Like that's funny to watch when me and her boy are sitting there eating squirrel at the table, and I'm like, this is some redneck stuff going on here.
But I I don't know how to get in off of that after eating squirrel thing. But no, I'm just kidding.
It's not a good transition.
No, yeah. No, no, but it was interesting when you were talking about food and being middle of the road.
Yeah.
And and you saw me smiling and laughing, and I'm thinking to myself, and that's because I was going into my head, and I was thinking, he's talking about middle of the road stuff, and I think in life, if we were in the middle of the road, we'd be a lot better off too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like you said,
Yeah.
you're either you're either vegan or you're not, or you're vegetarian or you're not. I mean, everybody has their in today's day and age, it's you are one thing or the other. There is no common ground to come and have this conversation. And I think if we were if we started moving this side and that side of anything, and we get into the middle,
Yeah.
it's a better conversation to have, and we become a better person because of that. Because the, like we talked earlier, Ricky jumping in the river, the creek for cold water, and me just making fun of him jumping in the hot tub. But we can still have that conversation. I mean, that was something I just thought up. But we,
Yeah.
in the aspect of we're in the middle there. We can make fun of things, and we need to learn to make fun of each ourselves also,
Yeah.
because the middle the middle is where I like to be, because I want to hear the conversation. I want to hear your point of view. I want to hear Ricky's point of view. It doesn't mean I'm going to believe in everything, but it means that I have that thought in my head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y-
That word I used, absolutism. I was thinking about that the other day, um, and I think it's kind of as a society, what you're describing is our kind of trend towards like tribalism. Like you're over here in your camp, and they're over there, and sometimes I think that our trend towards absolutism leads us to that bigger trend of tribalism, and I think that's a huge issue in our society and in our culture right now. Um, I think it's really interesting, and using kind of the example or the lens of food to talk about this. But I have good friends, really good friends who are vegans, and all different types of dietary preferences. Um, and I think if you like social media, and again, like grumpy old man warning, I have to try not to sound like this, but like social media makes all that so easy, and like you put stuff and I find I get like mislabeled because like people see that I like to hunt and I really like to prepare meat, and we eat meat. We think it's good for us. We make that choice, and people were like automatically think I'm like some sign of like carnivore or paleo only, and it's like no, we just like to eat meat. We also eat a ton of everything else. Um, but some of the stuff I see from like some of like friends I have who are very like absolute in their diets, whether they're keto or they're vegan, and that you see the stuff they put on social media, and it seems like, man, it's almost like aggressive, like it's a little bit like in your face. But then those same people come to our home and I ask them what they want for dinner, and I'll cook a vegan meal for them, and we have great conversations, right? And so it's
Mhm.
when you're face to face, like people aren't really like that as much, but our interactions are increasingly less face to face, less localized, and so we get drawn into all that absolutism, tribalism so much easier, I think. Um,
Mhm.
we had one of our athletes and his wife came up to visit last summer, and they're vegans, and they're just awesome people. We love them, and we ate vegan the whole 3 days they were here, and we had some great conversations. Um, and then but they ask me all the time when they see like I made this wild game dish, they'll like ask me about it, and they're curious about it, and that's the way it should be. And I find if we can
exactly.
sit down, like literally in this instance, sit down at a table, and share different kinds of food and talk about things, then we'd be a little less prone to that. But
Mhm.
I try to embrace nuance and balance. I think that's what I just find is best in most approach for a better approach for most aspects of life. And I think it's kind of lacking a lot right now. So
Because I think that, I mean, I'm a big proponent of living in a fulfilled life. And I think when we get into those tribalism areas that we were talking about, you're just filling your life because you're not. Here's the deal. I like the diet part because it seems to be it's easier to talk about without making people mad, I assume.
yeah,
Uh, but it's like I have friends that are like they are mostly on a strict. I mean everything has to be healthy. But you know what? I like to stop at Dairy Queen or
yeah,
occasionally. It's not that I have to do it all the time. So what I'm saying
right,
is, or have it some ice cream or have whatever. I want to have a. To me, that's fulfilling because you just talked about eating African, eating Japanese, eating American meat and potatoes. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But if we don't if we don't expand outside ourselves, how are we going to fulfill ourselves? Because all we're doing is just going down the road, filling. I mean, it's like I would assume with your athletes is they can go down the road, but unless they have a purpose of trying to become better, all they're doing is going down the road. If they're walking, running, or whatever, it's you have to have a purpose to become better, and that purpose is to fulfill whatever you have there. So let's try stuff. If I don't like it, I'm not going to eat it again.
yeah,
I
right,
mean,
yeah,
here's the deal, and I'll tell you this thing. I can't eat beets. They just taste like dirt to me.
I can't, Rick.
But
Unbelievable. We're done here. I'm out. Okay.
but I tried them a long time ago. I don't like beets. You understand? But
Yeah.
I like broccoli, cauliflower. I like other things. You
Yeah.
know, but
But you're
what
probably
I'm
not going
saying
to
is
berate someone for liking beets.
no, I'm
Right.
not.
Right. I mean,
Eat all
You
the
yeah.
kale
know,
you want.
but but if you don't try it, how do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and there's another example is my wife lived was living differently. Ricky and I talked the other night, and he says I'm more uh, free spirited or something. I think you said I'm more
Carefree was the word I used.
carefree,
Yeah.
and I probably admit I am more carefree, and my wife isn't as carefree as I am, but she's learned. We've had these conversations because I take her on adventures, and I make her. I don't really make her get. It was funny because when we first started seeing each other, it was like making her get out of bed, and now she knows like we don't know what we're going to see today, and she sees the excitement of like the pictures of the sheep and the buffalo and everything we took about today, the sunrises and stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's like she says, you have taken me places that I would have never gone. And that's where I want people to go, is because I want them to see outside themselves. We always look at, and what I'm saying about that is every I can look at you, I can look at Ricky, and I can see the outside, but I like to know what's on the inside, and that's where we fill ourselves up with. You
Yeah.
know, we can, because I said you can fill up the glass of water, but until you drink it, it doesn't nourish you.
Yeah.
And when you, that's where I'm saying when we get the life and get things going, and we go fulfill ourselves, we fulfill everything. And maybe I'm going off here on a tangent, but more or less what I'm trying to say is we we find that middle ground and try things, listen to people, have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not never going to be vegan, but I would try a vegan meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
We
Just
like we've talked about how much obviously I love meat and I'm way into wild game meat and stuff, but we eat, vegan or vegetarian dinners a couple times a week in our house, and it's great, and doesn't bother me one bit. Um, but I think what you said about your wife saying that you're taking her places she hasn't been, or allowing her to see things she hasn't seen. Um, that really kind of stuck in my head when you said that, and that for my athletes, that's like the coolest thing and sometimes it's physically they're seeing something they haven't seen. They did this long run to the top of this mountain. They ran higher on the mountain than they ever have, and they send me a picture, and obviously I know how excited they are and what a cool experience it was, but I know like what they're seeing physically for the first time. They're also finding something in themselves for the first time because they did that. And that's what it's all about. Like athletics, like with and again, I work with a massive range of athletes right now, and I call everybody an athlete. I don't care if it's someone right off the couch that's trying to run 3 miles twice a week and we're going to try to get them there. I mean, that's an athletic endeavor and they're an athlete, same as the athletes I have trying to make the Olympics. But as an athlete, we have if they have a race, or I want to be able to do this hunt, or whatever the objective is great. And it's awesome when we get there and it goes well and it's super cool. But what they're gaining years down the road is all the strength and self-awareness that they now have because they went through that process, because they did challenge themselves, because they did open their mind, they did bring a growth mindset to it, all those things. So it's literally when someone sees something or experiences something they haven't before, that's the biggest win there is.
Yeah.
because once you have that, it's funny how you say that, because it's like the athlete appreciates the view. They finally realize what they were doing, but they appreciate that view, and that's what I there's a time in your life that life isn't about the light switch turning on. There's a dimmer switch, and until that that slowly gets the light a little more brighter and a little more brighter until the light fully comes on, and then it's like, oh, so it's a journey to learn to appreciate. And I think that's with your athletes, it's the journey to learn to appreciate what they've done, and then they see they're fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I love your filled versus fulfilled life. I mean, I think that's really, I dig that, I'm going to break that out with my athletes and give you credit for it. But, I mean, that the way I kind of see it is like, sometimes a filled life for an athlete is like the event, right? Like, I want to do this 50K. I want to qualify for this. I want to run under a 3 hour marathon, whatever it is. And if they do that, they have filled their life to some extent, but they are fulfilled by everything it took to get there, right? And that's what we're after for all of our athletes, whether it's whether it's an elite athlete or someone just trying to get fit to be active longer in life, whether it's someone I coach for 4 months or for 10 years. That's the whole objective.
I don't know how much time you have left here, so you probably need to get back to your wife and kids. But in the end here, we ask a question. What's a good life to you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that changed a lot for me when we had kids. I'm kind of late in the kids game in life. I had kids a lot later than most of my peers, but boy, it's a big shift. I mean, you think of things a lot differently. And I'd have to say now, just being with my daughters. The pinnacle is probably being with my daughters and my wife outside. I mean, because that kind of brings it all together. Stuff like um, my wife, when she was pregnant, I think it was in August, she went down to Ketchum, Idaho, a couple hours from here for like a girls' weekend. And my, then almost 3-year-old, was here with me for the weekend. And of course, we just went outside like the whole time. We went fishing and we picked up our some food in town, some snacks, and then went out to this great little fly fishing spot that also has a little area she can play with sticks, and had a picnic in the back of the truck and fished, and then waded around in the creek with her. And like those moments, to me, that's probably about as fulfilled as I can get. Secondary to that would be hunting by myself. I'm and I do have a couple good friends I hunt with. I don't hunt with very many people, but there's just something about being alone in the mountains in that peacefulness. I've had some really just amazing experiences out there. I I had I tried to put together the perfect, what for me would be the perfect like hunting kind of experience, and that was driving to the edge of the Frank Church, hunting high country muleys in the Frank Church, because that season opens early. September 15 opens, so this was like late September. And I was going to hunt a couple days, and then on the way out, do some chucker hunting and then some fly fishing, and ended up. I need to keep trying to hit this perfect trip every September, late September, but that got kind of smoked out with forest fire smoke that time. So I didn't get to deer hunt as much as I wanted, but I still was in there day and a half before it was kind of useless because I couldn't see anything. And then on the way out, fly fished, just one of the epic streams we have around here, caught the biggest cutthroat I've ever caught on a fly, shot a couple chuckers on the way out. So it was like, if I'd have gotten like the 3 days of high country muley hunting and brought a buck out of there, that would have been like the home run for me, like on, home run, like backcountry weekend. But yeah, that's, as much as I love that stuff right now, that's secondary to being outside with my kids and my wife.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that. That is a
Because
good life.
that is a great life. It's funny because you say that, because Cindy and I were when we were on our way back from the Badlands, we went up and came through the Black Hills, and I was talking about when I was a kid. The most amazing thing about the world today is, when I was a kid, my uncle had a cabin up here in the middle of the Black Hills by Rochford, and you feel like you're away from everything in the world there. And I'm like 6, 7 years old. I mean, I've been out there since I was 6 months old, but I was told anyway. I don't remember that stuff, of course, but I said, it's amazing to me that vacations that people take their kids on these days is so much bigger than we came out to the cabin. So it's not like all you had to do really is pay for gas because you're going to eat wherever you're at, at home
Yeah.
or there. And I ran wild, and that was a
Yeah.
vacation.
Yeah.
That's the piece. We didn't have to go to Disney World. We didn't have to go to. I didn't have iPads or didn't have to watch movies. It's about being in the woods, and what's amazing today is it's like, it's also with the way other things have gone, but once it gets dark, then you better be thinking about coming home, kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
not you aren't in that bubble wrapped life that seems to be today, because and uh, it's still it's more of the you're a hockey player mindset, just rub some dirt on it and keep on moving kind of thing, when you're a kid,
Yeah.
it'll hurt a little bit, but the exploring and the imagination and stuff. So I appreciate that I what you're doing with your family is going on those adventures. Like, I love those things, I mean, and I love the part about the hunting alone thing, because I mean, I love hunting with people, but those experiences that you see alone, my perfect morning for me, or perfect hunting, I love elk hunting. I mean, I do a lot of whitetail, but I love elk hunting, and I've had only about 5, which I would say perfect mornings, but the one where the grass is this is archery hunting. The
Yeah.
grass is
Gotcha.
frosty, the air is just cool enough where you see the steam as the bull bugles, and it's in the
Yeah.
distance,
Yeah.
and you see the steam coming out and the sun's coming up. And I've had about 4 or 5 of those true experiences like that, where it was like, I don't know if I really want to go. I mean, you're gonna go try to hunt that thing, but it was like, this is the most awe-inspiring, it's the most spiritual experience I've had
Yeah.
today and in a long time. And it means a lot to me to be able to see that. And I miss that some of my friends don't get to experience it, but it's one of those that you're there, like,
Yeah.
you get to see those things, you're there, and that's when it's meant to be.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I'm a mule deer guy. If I only hunt one thing, it's chasing muleys. And if you hunt muleys in the West, you spend a lot of time glassing. I mean, you hike in and you sit you get a vantage and you sit for a long time. You go to another vantage, you sit for a
Mhm.
long time. And I've taken my wife a couple times, and she just like can't believe how long we sit in one spot, just looking over this mountainside, looking you this drainage, you know. And she'll be like, "Are we gonna move somewhere else?" I'm like, "No, let's take a nap and then keep looking more." And you just get so much time with these incredible views. You're seeing amazing country, but in silence. And we just get that quiet space for your mind is so valuable. And sometimes again, we keep talking about like the fulfillments in the process. Like, I mean, I'm totally like, obsessed with muleys as an animal, and think they're so cool. And I love it when we bring one home, and we love the meat and all that. And chasing the old mature ones is just such a crazy, challenging game of chess match, and I love all that. But sometimes I think what I love the most is just hiking in and sitting in silence for half a day, and everything I get out of
Well,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
But and like I also like I have friends that come out here mule deer hunting in South Dakota, which is totally different than Idaho. But
Yeah.
I've sat in the glass for 6 hours while they go and make a stalk, because the deer is move. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they'll glass
Yeah.
up to me and I'll say this, but
Yep.
I stay in the glass for 6 hours and I don't get bored. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a real video game that you're playing, and then you go like, come on, man, it's right there. You
Yeah.
can't see this thing,
Yep.
Uh,
Always looks a lot
but
easier for the guy in the glass.
Yeah.
That's why I like to be in the glass a lot more. Then I can be more critical, you know.
Yeah, right.
but like you said though, like being there, you realize how when you're watching the world turn, how quick clouds come in, snow squalls come in,
Yeah,
they go out, the sun comes back out, it warms up. Things happen so fast in the mountains, and you have so many different views that, and that's the kind of way life is. Things get thrown at you, then they leave, and then something else comes in. But in the end, you might see that beautiful sunset after you saw that beautiful sunrise, and it's like bookends on a beautiful day.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Also, just some of the crazy stuff you see when you sit in glass for a long time. Like in the Frank Church a couple years ago, I saw Wolverine, like one of the most rare animals to see in North America, and I was like, "Holy crap, that's a Wolverine!" you know, and
Yeah.
and just the crazy stuff you see in the mountains, or you'll see. I'll be hunting muleys, and you turn up a bunch of elk or bear, and or watching bucks fight, from a mile away. And it's just, yeah, you can't beat that level of kind of immersion in the environment around you. So, um,
no.
yeah, I might have one better answer on the good life. I think if I had to boil it all into one, that we do what we call creek time in the summer a lot. And I love fly fishing, like little tiny streams, like, that are just hard to cast into, and, wading up and down. And so we'll take the whole family, and, my wife and daughter and dog, and we'll kind of set up the whole thing, and, they'll play and build stuff, and she's running all over sticks and rocks and building castles, and I just wade up and fish and come back and check on them and take a break and wade down a ways and fish. And like, that's kind of like, a microcosm of what we're trying to do with this Idaho Afoot thing, of just kind of building everything into our life, and being able to be out there and fish, but with them, and have my daughter experience the rocks under her feet and the sticks in her hands. And I mean, all those things that we value is pretty hard to beat.
The only thing I saw about that was your dog doesn't like to get in the water or something. I saw you had that post.
And he doesn't get it. Like, he's a bird dog. He's a German short hair, and he's 11 this year. He's 11, but he acts like he's 3. And he has a hard time because he thinks every time we're loading up, he's going to hunt. And so,
Yeah.
like, sitting
Mhm.
by a creek all day while we fish, and isn't his idea of a blast.
So no, I do you have. I just think this is cool. And do you? How do people like follow you or get a hold of you, or if they have any questions or want to maybe go on a run with you or be
Yeah.
anywhere, anything like that? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, yeah. We don't do a lot of channels of social media. We're pretty much Instagram. So our Instagrams, I think it's Idaho underscore Afoot, or my personal one's Pat.McCurry. And hop on there, and the Tuesday tip videos, and we have a lot of highlights of outfitting trips from last summer. If you can check that out and see if it's something you're interested in. And then just our website, idahofoot.com, kind of breaks down everything we offer. I do have a blog on there that I really enjoy writing. Since we had our second kid, I don't think I've written a single word. I got to figure out where that fits in all the time now. But yeah, I think reading the blog would give you a good idea of kind of the philosophy we're employing. But yeah, basically our website and Instagram.
Because, like I said, I think I'll be probably contacting you, asking you questions, because this is going to be the toughest one for me to do probably that I've done. I mean, like I said,
Yeah,
that 7 peaks in 24 hours, because it's mostly the logistics. Because what's the toughest part about it is getting in that vehicle to drive to the next mountain or next trail,
sure.
because sometimes it's a half hour, 45 minutes, and you start tightening up, and then you're walking like I'm already an old man, but I'm walking like an older man when I get out of that car sometimes. So,
Yeah,
but
reach out.
no,
We
I
can
want
we
to.
can help you.
All right. Well, I want to just say thank you. Do you have anything else, Ricky?
No, I just want to say, thanks for coming on, and just appreciate. I know you just got over, you got over a kind of a nasty bug, so thanks for showing up and being here. And also, most importantly, thanks for living the Don't Die Rusty lifestyle and living in that mindset, because again, this is why you're here, is because Rick and I can't experience everything in the world. And so we need people like you to share your experiences with the Don't Die Rusty Nation as well. So thank you for that.
It was awesome
really
to chat with you
appreciate it.
guys, and thanks to you for being flexible and the rescheduling with our illness and all that. And I love the whole concept of what you're doing, and any way we can I could be involved down the road, I'd love to be. So.
Well, that's awesome, and I do want to thank you. And this is what this is about. Don't Die Rusty is about learning a little bit from somebody, and if I can, and it's not, and it's, this is probably the most selfish podcast that anybody will ever listen to, because I learn more probably from these conversations than maybe some of our listeners would. But I feel so, I don't feel selfish, but I feel lucky to be able to have these conversations with people, so I get to better myself. And each day I want to be a little bit better than I was the day before. And by being able to talk to like you and other people just makes my day a lot brighter, we'll just say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you very much for taking the time to be with us, and thank you for keeping those athletes chasing their dreams, because that's another thing that we try to do is I want to tell people chase their dreams, and you're helping people chase their dreams and hopefully a fulfilled life. So thank you very much.
Don't die rusty, everybody.
Don't die rusty.
Don't die rusty.